Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are tackling a real world use case, how to import a Swagger API collection into Postman. Often projects would be using Swagger for API documentations, but there may be a need to switch to Postman. And why is it so? Because Postman, in comparison to Swagger, will be offering us better API testing capabilities. Postman is also having advanced tools like authentication handling. It is also a platform which simplifies the collaboration and automation. So these benefits make Postman a better tool when some ways compared to Swagger. So there may be a use case wherein your project is having a requirement wherein you need to migrate your Swagger API collections into Postman. But manually adding these each API collections to Postman can be really tedious. But don't worry, we have an easier way to migrate our Swagger API collection without any manual effort. So let's dive in. So, talking more about Swagger, Swagger is an open source framework which is used for designing, building, documenting, and testing RESTful APIs. It acts as a contract between the API provider and consumers, making APIs more understandable for both humans and machines. Swagger will include several tools. So it has Swagger UI, which is acts as a GUI or a user interface to visualize and test these APIs. We also have Swagger Editor, which is an online editor for API definitions. We have Swagger CodeGen, which generates server stubs and client SDKs. We also have Swagger Hub, which is a collaborative platform for API documentation. So Swagger is nothing more than a framework, but Swagger has a lot of tools. So we are mostly focusing on Swagger UI and the collection which we have it has created, and we want to use it in Postman. So we are not touching on other three tools in this topic. Swagger UI would be a focus for us. Okay. Swagger runs on some specifications, and these are called Swagger specifications. So now these have been now recently been the name has been changed, and these are now called OpenAPI specification or OAS. So this actually, what is the specifications? So these will be defining REST APIs in a structured format. So they help us in defining them in a structured format, and the specification format is usually either a YAML format or a JSON format. Okay, and so Swagger also the specification we have. So these are also of two types. So initially this was known as Swagger 2.0, which was the original standard, but now it has name has changed and it is now called OpenAPI 3.0, and this is actually managed by the OpenAPI initiative. So now let us discuss about using Swagger with our backend technologies. So this project is more focused on using Swagger with Spring Boot technology, but that doesn't define like only Spring Boot will be capable, or Spring Boot is only able to be integrated with Swagger. Swagger is actually language independent, so we can integrate it with a JavaScript framework like Node.js, or we can also integrate it with Python. We can maybe use it with C Sharp. It doesn't specify which language it is binded to, so feel free to use it for any such language. So now let's take a look at our project. This is a Spring Boot project with Swagger, and I have already created it so that it becomes simpler and the video is much shorter. And also, since this project is not about Spring Boot, so I'm not creating the Spring Boot project from scratch over here. But yes, the link of this project can be found in the description of this video. I will be adding it, and it's a GitHub repository, so you can always clone or fork it, and then you can keep working on it. Also, when we are focusing on how to use Swagger with our Spring Boot project, we should be knowing that there is an dependency or a library in a market which we can use, which is also called Spring Doc OpenAPI. The Spring Doc OpenAPI, it automatically generates the API documentation based on the controllers, the request mappings, and the DTOs, which are also the data transfer objects. So this, if we are using this in our dependencies um module in the pom.xml, Our project will be easily integrated with Swagger. So Swagger will be integrated and we can use it as per our convenience. Moving ahead, we come to application.properties file. This file is the main heart of this application. So all the control which happens for this Swagger project is happening from this file. So as we can see, there are a lot of lines written in the code. So all of these are configuration settings. I will be explaining to you all of them one by one. What is the purpose they serve and what would happen if we would have not used them as they are written right now. So let's understand them. So the first line is spring.api docs.enabled equals to false. What does this mean? This would mean it actually disables the generation of the OpenAPI documentation if it was left uncommented. So currently we need not worry and the documentation would still work as it is working as we have kept it commented. But say once it was uncommented that all this documentation what we see, the purpose of this would actually not been possible. So that is one controlling flag wherein we can do that. The second one is springdoc.swagger.ui enabled equals to false. So what this is doing is, if this was left uncommented, it would disable the Swagger UI, and since it is commented, we are seeing the Swagger UI right as of now. So the next line is springdoc.packages2scan. So what this attribute does in this application.property is it specifies the Swagger where it has to go and scan all the controller files. So we can always specify if say we have a lot of controllers, say like I have 10, 15, maybe more than that, 30 controllers, and I don't want every controller to be scanned. So in that case, what I can be doing is like I can specify that particular package name over here. So say I have controller and inside of it I may have controller A, controller B, anything. I have here I have different file names, but it can be always anything else. So I want to specify like no, you do scan only for one. I don't want to scan anything else. Then always we can go here and we can specify the package name. Right now what we are doing is we have specified com.ankit.spring.swagger.controller, so it is scanning the entire controller file. So the next line is spring.swagger-ui.path. So let's start the Spring Boot project first and then we shall see how the Swagger UI looks. So as we know, like we are using the Swagger UI tool of the Spring Swagger framework, and this tool can be accessible. There is a default URL how through which we can access this tool, which is localhost 8080 slash swagger UI.html. So if we try to access on this, then we can see our Swagger UI over it. So as we can see, the URL has loaded and we can see the Swagger UI tool on our screen. So this is how the screen looks. It has our Swagger UI project name, and then we have a list of all the APIs which are listed in the controller. Now, whatever is mentioned in the value of that attribute of springdoc.swaggerui.path, which is slash Ankit documentation, so this URL path can also be used to access this page. So we may always have a condition wherein we want a custom URL to be present and we want to use it rather than not using the old ones. Maybe that is something that custom URL is maybe something we remember easily, that is very much easy to remember, that is something custom to our project and we want to make it such like that. We want to have a theme of those terms which we are using in our project, then we can go for this. So if I also write Ankit documentation, it will reroute me to the same URL. So the next is spring.api docs.path. So this actually helps us specify the documentation path of this project. So the default path is v3 API docs. So if we try to hit it, Currently, we cannot be able to access that page. The reason is since we have enabled this custom URL, the both of these can't work. So this is not identical to what we were using it for the documentation path, that is the Swagger UI.path. So that since now if we go to that Ankit API docs, we can see our documentation page and it will be rerouting to that page internally, but we won't see it on the URL. So that is how it works. And now once I paste this URL, I can see this JSON response. This is the documentation of all my APIs, which we can see. I can pretty print it also. Nice. So the next attribute is spring doc.swagger UI.operations sorter equals to method. So this is also a commented line, but what it actually does is it would enable, if this was enabled, this would actually enable the sorting of these API methods, which is like get, post, put, delete alphabetically. Okay. Uh, and the next line is also somewhat related to it. That is a tag sorter. Okay. Swagger UI.tag sorter. We have put it to alpha. So what this means is like if this was enabled, this would have sorted these API on the basis of the API tags alphabetically. So that is the meaning. Okay. So now moving on to next line. So the next line is Spring Doc Swagger UI dot try it out enabled, which I have set it to true. So what it actually means is like it enables a button inside the Swagger UI which will allow us to test or execute our APIs in that Swagger UI tool itself. So it is somewhat similar to what Postman also helps us to achieve, wherein we can hit those APIs and we can see what are their responses coming in. Okay, so that is something which this attribute in this application.properties give us. So we would also see it on the UI, Swagger UI tool, where we can see all this happening, whatever I'm telling you. So this is all not the theory, it's all practical also. So yes, let's test this get API. Okay, let's put the cancel. Okay, now I'm hitting this try it out button. Okay, and yes, so this is true. Okay, now let us try it out. Oh, okay, I did a mistake. I had to specify an ID. Okay, let's specify the ID. One, execute. Now you can see. So this is my curl API. This is my response, which is coming in. Okay, so this is all working now. So this is what I was saying. So we can try it out with the help of that flag. If we enable disable that flag, it won't work. Okay. Okay. So the next line is Spring Doc Swagger UI filter. So this is a attribute which actually helps us to get a filter tag, basically a filter search bar in the Swagger UI. So this filter search bar will be used to basically make our life more easier. So say we have a lot of APIs like 70, 80, 100 APIs or even more, and we want to filter out some of those. So we can use this filter and we can type in over here. So say I try to type one of the keyword which is actually easy like sample. So I will be seeing only those APIs now. So you see my window height has decreased. Okay, so I cannot scroll much as I was able to initially. Now I type in large. Okay, so I can see only large are visible, sample is now no more visible. So that is, it means like the filter is working. Okay, and so this is the use of filter. If I remove this, everything is there. Okay, fine. So this is what is the use of the filter tag. So this will actually make our life easier if we have a lot of APIs. Now moving to this next part, which is this OpenAPI dev URL and the prod URL. So these are just variables wherein we can store any URLs which we would be needing for our custom environments. So see, this is a dev URL. I have put in localhost as a value, but that doesn't mean only localhost can be there. It can be any dev environment, any QA environment, and anything else which we want. This is a prod, so and I can put any prod URL. This is a demi URL which I have put for now, but it may be anything. Okay, so now we are almost done with what the Swagger framework is and what the Swagger UI is. So we have a fair understanding of both and how these are operating and how we have built this app, project. Okay, so now we shall be diving more deep into which is the final leg of this video, which is why we are building this video, that is to import the collection into Postman. So one more thing which I would also like to tell you is, like in the initial I had told you, this runs on OpenAPI specification 3.0, so that we can see it over here, OAS 3.0. And this documentation link is also what we can see, Ankit API docs. So if we use this, copy this and paste it in another browser tab, so we can see like that JSON page would open up. So that is a documentation which is Swagger UI gives it to us. That's a JSON collection. This is something which we will be importing into the Postman. Okay, so this is ready. That was a manual process. Clicking on this link will also give that page, so we don't have to write that page every time. That is not something which I have to do. I just showed it to you for now. Okay, so this one also solves that purpose. Also, there are other things which I would like to tell you, like whatever we are seeing on the screen, it's not just magic. So everything is coming from whatever code we have written. It's not something UI we have created. Okay, so that is also something. And this title of this Swagger API page, which is a Swagger API management. So this is also coming, which where we have feeded it in the code, where it is written is OpenAPI config, yes. And here we can see like the title we have specified Swagger API management. It matches. Okay. So all these terms of service, the Ankit Kishore website, whatever is written, all this is coming from this file. You can see everything, contact, description, terms of services, licenses, everything is fitted here. This is not as important as application.properties, and so I have not mentioned you initially, because even if you don't know this, it's not such a big issue. It's just decorative purposes. And this is the second part which I was telling, that application.properties page, those two environment variables. So once we change it to this, and if we try to hit any API now inside it, it will automatically use the base URL of the prod. So we just have to toggle here and it will keep changing and where it is going to hit the final servers. Okay, so that is a use which I was telling you that time to remember where we will be using it. This is the place. Okay, so now we try to import this APIs. So for that, we can click on this link. But before that, we need to have Postman in our system. So just make sure that we have Postman installed. So I already have it installed. It's neat and clean. There's nothing you can see. Now I can click on this. It opens the documentation. I pretty print it. Now I can see like we have sample, we have large, somewhere. Okay, yeah, this is large. I control A, control C, copy it. I have to paste it in a file. So I go to my resources folder. There is already a file, but I will again do it for your sake, for maintaining sanity. So I am doing it, pasting it, and this is the file. I know it, I remember it, OpenAPI.json. So I have to import this file in my Postman collection. So I go to my Postman. There is an import button. I click on that. So either I can paste the URL, say if the JSON is hosted on a URL, we can directly paste it. That also works fine. If not, we can also add a file. So there is an option here. You can see that there is a file option. We click on that, we add our file. It will automatically import all the APIs which are present inside it. So we will go with the file option as I don't have it hosted right now. So I am trying to add this OpenAPI. Let's see what happens. It reads it, figures out it's a collection, so it wants us, like, you want to import as a Postman collection or an OpenAPI 3 collection. I say no, only a Postman collection, don't do it like an OpenAPI. So I go with a Postman collection, uh, import, and then we see like it is getting imported, or it's imported. Now I can see all my APIs listed inside this. So this is a tutorial management API. Every data what we were seeing over there is now being visible here. Okay, so whatever we are seeing, the terms of service, all this thing are visible there. And if I see the complete documentation, if I click on this, I can see all the entire data which I was seeing there. So see the all per API documentation is there. I don't want to see it right now, so I will jump back and I will come back to it later. So whatever I have here, variables. Okay, so I have this localhost 8080. So this is something which we were talking about, the application properties, the environment variables. So what is inside this? Okay, so I have all my controller files. Based on the controller files, it has bifurcated over here. So I have sample, large, and tutorials. So tutorials must not be having anything, but yeah, I think yeah, oh, it has maybe some old data which I was working with. Okay, but I don't think it should work. Yep, it doesn't work. Nice. So we can skip this. We can see sample. So say let's try something. I go to items, get the items. Does this work? Should work. Oh yes, this works. Great. So we can see we are getting response. Collection has been successfully imported. It is working fine. So what was working fine in Swagger is now also working fine in Postman. So mission accomplished. Now you can go and play and anything we can do anything. So this is the base URL what we are seeing. So anything if we go and change in the variables, so this will also change. Okay. So that is something I was saying application.properties. Okay. So this one is very useful. Nice. Also, you can change it in the Postman, but better not touch it like that. So either you change it here, again import it, or maybe yeah, you can also play with that, no issues, and you can always import a fresh one. So yeah, that's the purpose of it. Okay, so that's it from this video. So I hope you have enjoyed watching this and it was a knowledgeable session. So yeah, I will try to post some other videos on this. So there is also a bug in Postman wherein if say we have a very large collection, say around 700, 800 APIs inside one Swagger API collection, it gets stuck. So it will make Postman offline and then it will say couldn't import. Try to make it online. So that's a bug which is there in the GitHub repo. I'm trying to find out a way. If I will make a part 2 of this video. So stay tuned for this channel, hit the like and subscribe button, and do let me know in the comments if you have any feedbacks or problems. Happy watching. Thank you.